good. Thank you. Okay, so thanks a lot for allowing that, Iolo. Now, okay, you've obviously, you're out and about the whole time. How's the lockdown feeling for you now?
Well, without wildlife, it would be unbearable. It really would be unbearable. I go for my walk every day, and they say half-hour walk. I'm lucky where I live. I live in the Welsh countryside, so my walks last probably about 2 hours along quiet country lanes here. I'm lucky in a day if I see 2 tractors and a car, and that's it really. So I go out. The spring flowers are looking magnificent at the moment. The lesser celandines are dying away and giving way to greater stitchwort, and bluebells are starting to come through. There's all kinds of bees around as well. I've really got into bees during the past 3 weeks. Some amazing bees around. The queen bumblebees, buff-tailed, red-tailed bumblebees, common carder bees, the tree bumblebees. They're all like these big fat queens are out. A lot of solitary bees as well, red mason bees. I've got a sort of a solitary bee hive, if you like, out there, a bee house, and that's full of red mason bees. And bird nesting as well. I found a lot of robin nests, blackbird nests, song thrush, long-tailed titnest, the best of all the nests, of course. So that's what I spend my time doing. I'm not very good at staying inside. You said that I'm a writer as well, a very reluctant one. I'll only write if it's raining cats and dogs. Because if it's raining cats and dogs, I think, well, I don't really want to go outside now. So then I'll write. But once the rain stops, I'll go out again. I'll just leave the writing. So I'm not a good writer. Some people are very disciplined. I'm not. I just want to be outside.
Well, it must have rained a lot in Wales because you've written about 6 books.
Yeah, well, it does rain a lot. That's, yeah, it's true. It is true. Over the years, it's amazing. People ask me, how many books have you ever written? And some are in Welsh, of course, some are in English. And I say, probably 4 or 5. But it's probably about double that. I'm not sure actually exactly how many. It's not many compared to a lot of people, yourself, Nick Baker and what have you. But it's a lot for someone who didn't go to school very often.
Okay, talking about not going to school very often, my intel tells me, but you studied ecology in London, yeah?
Yeah.
Degree in ecology. Now, how did you find London life?
Do you know what? I mean, bear in mind, I grew up here in mid Wales. You're born and brought up not far from here, and love the countryside, love my wildlife. Of course I do. But when you're 18, the hormones are pulsing through your body. You're interested in rugby, women and beer, not necessarily in that order. London with its bright lights was a big attraction. And although I've got to be honest from the start, I wasn't very good at school in that, not that I was not very clever, I was kind of average really, but I didn't like school very much. I wanted to be outside, on a lovely spring day. I'd look out and I think, do I really want to go to school? And the answer was no. So I'd bunk off. And that didn't help me. I scraped through 2 A-levels, and I mean scraped. So I was only accepted at 2 polytechnics. One was Oxford, and I went for an interview to Oxford. The Polytechnic was fine, but I went to a local pub just to have a beer and a meal, and even the waiter looked down his nose at me. So I thought, well, I'm not going to Oxford. So the only other choice was North East London Polytechnic, and I loved it there. I had a fantastic time, brilliant 3 years. I still did a bit of birding. There were a couple of good graveyards nearby where we had deer, we had parakeets, of course, which I wasn't used to in Wales here. You had the London parks as well. And of course, I had everything else as a young man full of hormones that you needed there. So I enjoyed London. I couldn't live there now. I couldn't. But for the 3 years that I was there, I had a great time.
Well, that's interesting. One thing that people may not know is that you are a qualified paraglider.
Yeah.
You are is it PADI or PADI dive master?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, Paddy. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. And also going back to your sporting stuff, you are obviously very keen on rugby. You used to play rugby, is that right? You still play rugby?
I'm a massive rugby fan. I played rugby from, well, as you do in Wales, from when you're about 3 months old, right through till I actually packed in when I was 45. So for the last 5 years, it was veterans rugby. I hit 40. I played for various teams, really. I ended up playing for the local team, Newtown Firsts. Then I came down to Newtown seconds, then Newtown thirds, which was more of a drinking team. And then the veterans, we'd play maybe once a month. And then in the end, I mean, I just found it difficult to find time to train. The knocks lasted longer, and I used to have lads of maybe 40 just leaving me for dead, and I looked a bit of a fool. So I thought, y'all, it's time to pack it in. And I've got to be honest, it's 12 years ago now, but I still miss it. It's the best game in the world.
Well, I don't share your love, but I can share your passion. So that's fair enough. So you don't play football then, no?
No, well, do you know what? I played rugby for nearly 30 years, never sent off, never, ever sent off in my life. I then went and played football for 18 months, sent off twice. The reason being, I wasn't used to people swearing at you right in your face, telling the ref where to go. You know, in rugby, it's the utmost respect. If the ref says, blah, 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 you say, yes, sir, sorry, sir, and then you go back 10 yards, whatever. But in football, they were swearing, effing and blinding all the time, and right in my face, which, you know, if that happened in rugby, then you sort of sort it out. I'm not saying it's right, but it was sort of sorted out there and then. And twice it was, Williams, get off, red card. And so I was sent off twice. My boys then, when I was sent off the second time, they would have been about 5 and 8. And I thought, you know, you are not setting a good example here. So football lasted 18 months. And after that, I thought, nah, enough's enough.
Yeah, fair enough. You are a fit example of a man. And I understand that you love a full Welsh breakfast and you are totally into cakes, which I can actually go with. And you actually were, I don't know if you still are, but you certainly were at one point, the Welsh Gay Icon.
yeah, this is a weird one. I've been doing telly for about 21 years now, I think it is. And I used to do a Welsh language program where it was kind of a Parkinson on foot. I used to take famous Welsh people for walks, for their favorite walks, where they grew up or whatever it was, and just interview them as we walk. Now, I wear shorts, you know. I'll try and show people I'm in shorts now, you know. I'm
Listen,
wearing,
I'm with you.
yeah,
I'm with you.
That's right. So I'm always in shorts. You know, it's got to be a really cold day for me not to wear shorts. I'm not allowed to on Spring Watch anymore. They said, no, you're not allowed to wear shorts. So for this walking show, I'd wear shorts and we go walking. And there was a gay club in Newport in South Wales. They would record them, and then they had a meeting every month. And they would play the show in this meeting for everyone there. Now, I got to hear about this years afterwards. Otherwise, I'd have gone down just to say hello to everyone. You know, I was delighted to have a gay audience in Newport. So that's where all of that has come from.
Fair enough. Now, when you came back to Wales, I presume, you worked on a farm and in the timber trade as well for a while? Just about timber trade.
Yeah, for about 18 months. I worked on a hill farm. Actually, the timber work only lasted about 4 months. It was one long summer, and the reason that came to an end was because you were kind of a lumberjack, you know. But now you'd have to wear all the safety gear. Then it was pair of shorts, t-shirt, pair of pumps. Get out there, big chainsaw, fell the tree. You'd brash it, which means cut off all the branches. You'd reel it, cut it into lengths, and then move on. And I remember after about 3.5, 4 months looking down, and I cut through the front of my pair of trainers, and I missed my toe by about 1 millimeter. Wow. And I thought, oh, this has got to end, otherwise I'm going to lose an important part of my anatomy here. And it just so happens that when I got home, fate, there was a letter for me at home, and it was from the RSPB offering me the job of species officer for Wales. So, you know, the timing was absolutely perfect.
So you spent the ensuing 14 years at the RSPB. Can you talk about any highlights of your career in the RSPB?
Yeah, it was nearly 15 years, 14.5 years, and I was called a species officer for Wales, and it was divided into 3 main fields of responsibility. First one was species monitoring, in other words, getting out and about and counting birds. I mean, put a lot of effort then into red kites. They were very rare birds, about 40, 45 pairs. in the UK, all of them in Mid Wales. So we needed to know where they were, how many they were they successful or not. So that was one part of the job. Another part was advisory work, giving advice to big landowners. So you're talking about people like National Trust, Forestry Commission, some of the big estates here, and talking about management to benefit the birds that we were interested in. I mean, with National Trust, it'd be birds like a chough. With Forestry Commission, it would be maybe nightjars and merlin. So just giving them advice. And the last one was investigations. There's an RSPB investigations department at headquarters at the lodge, but I was the link to Wales, really. I was often the first one to respond to incidents in Wales. So you're dealing with things like illegal poisoning, egg collecting, which was a huge thing back then, finch trapping, illegal shooting, all of these things, you know. So you saw some pretty despicable things going on. You know, so some things will stay with me until I die. I remember getting a phone call from a school just on the border, but half an hour away from here. The teacher was in tears. They picked up a buzzard with no feet, no talons, and of course it had been caught in a pole trap, one of these snap traps that was so powerful it had cut off both feet. And the buzzard had taken off in excruciating pain, circled around. Eventually, it had to land, and it just keeled over on a school playground. The children were in tears. They were so upset. All I could do was get there as fast as I could. There was nothing to do but put that buzzard down as fast as I could. Now, there was an estate not far away that was notoriously bad for the illegal persecution of birds of prey. So I got the police, and we went around that estate. Unfortunately, what I discovered later, we didn't find anything. What I discovered later was that the local policeman that I went with, his brother was the local keeper. So, you know, the word had got out. And I mean, that doesn't happen often. You know, the police, 99 times out of 100, were fantastic. But every now and again, you did get this incident whereby everyone is tied into the local estate, you know, so, and word gets around that you're snooping around looking for any kind of illegal activity.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously your passion are for raptors in terms of that persecution element, and it must be very heartbreaking, as you say, to discover those kind of crimes going on. And I believe you're still very much involved in that side of things now, in terms of, you know, going after perpetrators, or at least, you know, voicing your opinion on that.
Yeah, I just, there are a couple of things there. I'll talk about what I do now, but the other thing I passionately believe in, really, we're lucky. You and I are lucky. People like Chris Packham, we're so lucky. You know, we get paid for what we do. It's a lovely job. It really is. But it makes you a high-profile individual. And I'm a firm believer that we use our position for good, for things we believe in. There are some things I haven't got involved in that people say, why aren't you involved there? And I say, well, to be honest with you, I don't fully understand the argument there. So that's why I'm not involved in it. But things like bird of prey persecution, things like driven grouse moors, any kind of egg collecting, illegal poisoning, I abhor. I detest it. And I'm quite happy to go out there and say exactly what I think. I refuse to sit on the fence. And I firmly believe that anyone in our position should do that. We should stand up for wildlife. As to what I do now, well, I'm lucky in that every year I still make time to get up on the moors. I mean, I'm hoping I'll have time this year to get up on the moors to monitor breeding hen harriers, breeding merlin. I found 3 goshawk nests the other day. Around me here, I've got breeding buzzards. We've got, within a mile of the house, I got 4 pairs of red kites. So I still get out and about and monitor birds of prey and do what I can.
Fantastic. Tell us about your first TV break.
Well, it's an interesting one. It came as a result of my work for the RSPB. Often the TV companies here in Wales, more so than anywhere else, of course, would say, okay, can we have an update on the latest poisoning incident where you had 6 kites poisoned? And they'd say, well, you know, you need to speak to Iolo. Or how have black grouse done in Wales this year? Well, Iolo's your man, you know. They want to go out and film a black grouse lek. was speak to Iolo. So I had to deal with the media a lot. Now, to be honest with you, I found it to be a real pain in the backside, because you would explain to the TV crew, a director, cameraman, sound man, whatever it was, you'd say, okay, listen, I'm going to have to climb up to this kite nest now, and I'll bring the kites down because we need to weigh them and ring them and measure them, make sure they're healthy. And then I'll talk to the camera whilst I'm doing all this. And if you want to ask me any questions, feel free, I'll answer all of them. But then I need to put them back in as fast as I can, and we need to get away because the adults need to come back onto that nest. And they'd say, yeah, great, fine. And then you do it all. You climb up the tree, you put the chicks in a bag in a rucksack, you'd abseil down, you'd open it up, you'd weigh them, you'd measure them, you'd ring them, you'd explain why you were doing all of this, you'd explain some of the facts that you learned from all of this work and why it was being done. And then you'd put them back in the bag, go back up the tree, put them in the nest, abseil down, get the rope, get all your gear and leave. And invariably, the director at the end of all of that would say, any chance you can do that for us one more time? You know, and I would say, no chance whatsoever. And that happened time and time again. And I couldn't understand why they wanted me to walk down a hill 4 times. You know, I said, well, I've done it once. Surely that's good enough for you. And say, oh no, we want a wide shot now, and we want a tight shot of your face. Now, of course, I understand why they wanted it. Then I didn't, and I was thinking, this is stupid. This is ridiculous. So, I'd had to work with TV through my job, and I left the RSPB because I was being pushed to middle management, something I really didn't want to do. And when I was told that middle management was basically giving up a lot of the field work, managing people out in the field, sitting behind a desk, putting together budgets, planning for the year ahead, health and safety, all that kind of rubbish, I just said, yeah, it's not going to happen. So I handed in my notice. BBC Wales and S4C, the Welsh channel, heard that I was leaving. They offered me work. Initially, I said, thank you very much. It's very kind of you, but no thanks. And of course, my notice was 6 weeks, I think. And towards the end of that, I thought, I still haven't got a job. So I phoned them back and said, okay, let's give it a go. Let's try doing some wildlife programs. If you like what I do and I enjoy it, brilliant. If not, then we'll walk away. And it's worked so far because it's been 21 years. And I have to say, it's been brilliant. You know, I've enjoyed every single second of it.
Fantastic. You told me earlier that even though, you know, you're doing such amazing things on Springwatch and the Watches and other TV channels, that you actually enjoyed working with Welsh TV the most. Can you explain why?
Yeah, it's funny. You get more freedom. You know, they've got sort of Springwatch. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a joy to work on. It is fabulous. It's a brilliant team. You know, in all, when you've got everyone there, but 120 people between the riggers, the lighting people, the people who feed you, the researchers, the directors, all these people. And not a word of a lie, they are all fantastic. And when do you ever get 120 people all pulling the same way? You know, it doesn't happen often. I mean, Chris, Michaela, Gillian and myself, we just the sharp end. We really are. If it goes wrong, obviously people say, oh, you were awful. If it goes right, people say, oh, you were fantastic. Well, it genuinely isn't us. It's the 120 people behind us. You know, it has to work like that. But the thing with Welsh TV is they'll say, okay, you know, we want a program, this is only an example, on the wildlife of Anglesey. Well, to a large extent, you're your own boss. We get together and we think, okay, Anglesey, what do we know about Anglesey? What's the really cool wildlife there? What do we really want to show everyone? And so we go out and we film these things. There's nothing written, nothing at all. If I find an adder, I react to what I see. And I translate what's going on to the people at home. So it's far more spontaneous, really, than what I do on the watches. And that's why I said that in a way, I actually enjoy that more.
Yeah. Can you tell me or tell us even of a real blooper that happened? I mean, I remember once I did something on BBC for I think you were on that series as well, the Great British revival, wildlife revival.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
I was at my mum's. I was filmed going to my mum's house. I had to knock the door, and my mum would just open the door because she's obviously standing behind it. So of course I knocked the door, and the door doesn't answer. So I'm saying, "Mum, Mum, open the door!" So that was that was my moment. But what can you?
Well, quite an embarrassing one. I mentioned early on in my career that we were doing like a Parkinson on foot kind of thing, crwydro, it was called, which is the Welsh for wandering. So I go for a walk with well-known Welsh faces and interview them and ask them about their career, about their lives, about their passion for the particular area we were in. And I was with a chap called David Ellis Thomas, who was president of the Welsh Assembly. He was chair, sorry, of the Welsh Assembly for a long time. Nice bloke from Northwest Wales, and he was taking us for a walk over the Rhinog Mountains. And I had to excuse myself at one time. We'd had a few beers the night before, and I had to answer a call of nature. There's a big old wall there, went around behind this wall, made sure the camera people weren't there and what have you. And I thought, here we are. And I was thinking, oh, so glad to reach this point. Here we are. So I finished up, turned round. There was a family having a picnic right behind me, just all staring at me, agog, mouths open. And they had 2 kids, and I've never felt so embarrassed in the whole of my life. I went over, I said, listen, I'm really, really sorry. And they didn't utter a word. They were so shocked. They didn't say anything. They didn't have a go at me. They didn't say, oh, it's all right. They didn't say anything. So I just quietly crept away, went back over the wall and said, let's move on. Come on, let's get away from here. Come on, hurry up, hurry up. So, and that was very early on, and that taught me, when you're out all day, you've got to go when you've got to go, but you check every time.
Yeah, absolutely. You now also lead tours around the world, I guess. I wondered what kind of destinations were your favourite places to take people?
Yeah, this is a funny one, because flying in the last couple of years has become a big no-no, hasn't it? People knock you for your carbon footprint, and I can understand that completely. What I will say is that I'm traveling abroad a lot less, and I'm doing more UK-based tours now. And also, when I do go abroad through the World Land Trust, I try and offset the carbon. It's not perfect. It's not 100%, but I do try and do that. And of course, I learned a lesson fairly early on. We were in a national park. I think it was Chitwan National Park in Nepal, and I was talking to the head ranger there about feeling guilty about going out there, my carbon footprint. And he said, well, what you've got to remember, he said, is that if you Westerners don't come here, this reserve wouldn't be here. There's no purpose for it, for the government, if there's no money coming in. And there's money coming in only because you people from the West are coming here to enjoy the tigers, the Indian one-horned rhinos, the Asiatic elephants, all the other wildlife here. If you don't come here, they will deforest all of this. It'll become farmland, it'll become urbanized, and the wildlife will go. So it's getting that balance right between those two things. And that was a real eye-opener, because I'd never thought about it that way, really. I do a lot of UK-based tours. I love going to Mull. I think Mull is one of my favorite UK islands. It's a fabulous place. Abroad, most years, we haven't done it this year because it's usually in early April, and I know it's an area you know very well. I love going to Extremadura in Spain to see, well, which is where you are now. I know you jammy so-and-so, to see great bustards, little bustards, lesser kestrels, rollers, black vultures, griffon vultures, all of these things, and it's a short haul flight, which I'm enjoying more and more. I don't like long haul anymore. I used to, didn't bother me, but as you get older, you like them less and less. It's a short haul flight, so hop on a skip to Madrid, drive down, and all of a sudden it's a different world, and it's a fabulous place. It's changing like everywhere else, of course, but it's such a brilliant place for wildlife.
Absolutely. Now, before I open the floor up for questions, one more question from me for the time being. Your family, your wife and kids, do they share your passion, or do they think you're a bit of a nutter?
My wife has no interest in wildlife whatsoever, none at all. We get on very, very well, really well. And she and I, we love several things. We love going to cinema, eating out. We love dogs. Both of us love dogs, but she doesn't share my passion for wildlife at all, not at all. The two boys do, from when they were small. What are they, 22 and 19? Dewey's 22, Thomas is 19. They have come with me as often as they've been able to. I used to take them out of primary school. I used to check with the headmistress, and she was brilliant. She'd say they learn more in a day with you looking at those dolphins or adders or whatever than they ever would in school. So they've always come up with me from an early age, and it's lovely now to see when they've been out for a night out and they've come back in the early hours of the morning. I see them the next day and they say, "Oh, by the way, Dad, we saw a barn owl," or "We stopped to help a hedgehog across the road." So if you instill it in them young, even if it looks like they've forgotten about it, they haven't. It's still in there, still in there.
Brilliant. Okay, everybody here today, I wondered if anyone has a question. If you missed the beginning when I give the kind of house rules scenario, if you can just put your hand up, there's some sort of symbol, I think, down the bottom of your screen where you can put your hand up to ask a question. So does anyone have a question for Iolo?
They're all fast asleep.
And don't be shy. Oh, okay, Nigel has a question. Nigel.
Hi, Iolo and David. I'm curious, during the current awful lockdown that we're all in, people are talking about hearing birds and looking at nature more. Do you think this is going to last after the lockdown? Do you think people are going to be more involved?
Nigel, that's a really good question, and oddly enough, it's I've had the radio in Welsh and English for the last week, really, almost daily, saying, "Would you come on and talk about the fact that wildlife is benefiting from this lockdown?" There are some benefits, of course. I'm sure there are fewer hedgehogs being killed on the road, fewer badgers, fewer foxes, because there are fewer cars and lorries on those roads. Thankfully, around here, the council isn't cutting the verges like it usually does, despite people lambasting them and asking them not to. And that's been brilliant. I've seen more bees, more bee flies this year than I've ever seen before. And it's lovely to see more people connecting with nature and people wanting to know, putting on Twitter, putting on Facebook, "What's this bird song? What's this bee? What's this flower?" I've never seen that to such an extent before. Will it last? If I was honest with you, Nigel, I don't think it will. I think 2 months after this lockdown is over, most people will have gone back to the old routine, will have forgotten what they saw or what they learnt. Some people hopefully not. What I'm hoping more than anything else is that people who've got children at home, they've got to homeschool them, they've taken advantage of the weather we've had up to now and gone outside with them, and they've instilled that inquisitiveness about wildlife in the kids. Because if they've done that, then hopefully, if it sticks anywhere, it'll be with the youngsters, And if that is true, then this lockdown, awful as it is, will have had one benefit. One benefit.
Yes. I was out clapping the NHS last night, and it went on for 5 minutes. And of course, it's wonderful, and I'm sure we're all doing it. But I noticed more and more the birds are just going crazy. The sky was full of birds just flying round and round in circles. I mean, obviously, it's just once a week, but that was quite interesting.
Yeah, it is lovely. And it's nice to see people who have never noticed these things before actually paying attention now. Even bees. I've had people saying, "God, wow, there's some big fat bees out at the moment." And I explained, well, yeah, these are the queens, they've overwintered, they mated before, they've overwintered, they're looking for somewhere to nest, they'll lay their eggs, and then they'll get to work. And I've explained all this, and they're fascinated by it all. So yeah, if it has had any benefit at all, then to connect more people with nature, hopefully, and I do have my fingers crossed, hopefully, we'll reap the benefit of that for years to come.
Okay, thank you.
Nice one, Nigel. It's a pleasure.
Cheers.
Okay. Just another thing to tell you, if you want to ask a question, apparently if you go to the participants thing at the bottom of your screen. You can raise a hand there, and if you got Becky said that if you got the tablet, then you can. It's in the top right under the symbol of 3 dots. Okay, David's iPhone. I saw your hand up earlier. Do you have anything to say, David?
Yeah, sorry, I'm not used to this technology, Dave, so please forgive me. Right. Two things. First, to Iolo, to say that a red kite has been spotted over Anglesey, the southern part, quite a few times over the last 2 or 3 years. But the last 2 days, one's actually been spotted over towards Holyhead, an area called Valley.
Oh, I know RAF. I know Valley and RAF Valley very well indeed. And I think people of Anglesey, people down the Llŷn Peninsula, 2 of the very few areas where kites don't nest in Wales now. They are seeing red kites more and more, you know, and surely it's only a matter of a year or 2 before pairs start to nest. And once they do, believe me, they will take off. I moved to the house where we are now in 2003. We didn't see any kites here then. Now, within a mile of my house, I've got 4 pairs. So once they move in, hopefully they'll really take off because they're beautiful birds.
Wonderful news. I loved your little story at the beginning, actually, with the pigeon's nest. That's fantastic. Now, I've got a little grandson I've got a little grandson who's age 7. They moved into their current house 3 years ago. And anyway, obviously, because of the restrictions at the moment, I can only go down to the house, lean over the garden wall and to see them. Anyway, yesterday, full of excitement, Grandad, what? When they moved in, there was an old nest box on the side of the garage. And This is the 3rd year on the row now that the blue tits have gone into it and nesting. Now, the last 2 years, we've missed the fledging. So can you give me an idea how long before they, I mean, he's going to watch them now because he's really into it over the last couple of years. How long before, when they first start feeding, obviously, so you know, the eggs are broken out. How long between then and they actually fledge? Because really wanting to see them.
It's roughly 2 weeks. Roughly 2 weeks. So when he starts seeing them taking caterpillars and insects in, then I would say probably something in the region of about 12 days.
12 days
after that.
Right. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very
much as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. I've got Alan Archer who's got his hand up. Alan, have you got a question? Alan?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hello, Alan.
Hey, Iolo, how are you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Good. I remember when we talked at the Wirral Wader Festival. Remember when you did the talk at the Wirral Wader Festival? I was with Wader Quest. You mentioned that you were doing something around education, wildlife education in Wales. What's that? You know, where's that project up to? What's going on?
Oh, that's well, it hasn't ground to a halt because I won't let it ground to a halt, and other people won't either. But this is kind of in Wales trying to get natural history on the curriculum here, because I think it's just so important because a whole generation has been lost contact with wildlife, with nature out there. When I was a young lad, you know, everybody did what we're doing now. Actually, with this lockdown, everybody would go out for a walk, either with your mum or your dad or granddad, granny, whatever it was. You see loads of people out walking, paying attention to slowworms and frogs and frog spawn and buttercups and finding out, holding buttercups under the chin, finding out whether you liked butter or not. Simple little things like that are connected with wildlife. We've lost that. I saw that in the Oxford Children's Dictionary, they've dropped conkers, bluebells out of there because they don't think it's relevant to kids. I think that's disastrous. So it was a big push to try to get natural history as a GCSE in Wales. Unfortunately, I mean, you will know that I'm really not a fan of politicians at all. Really not a fan of them at all. But unfortunately, I was at a conference with Kirsty Williams, who is our Environment Minister here, and she was non-committal, completely non-committal on the whole thing. We've been trying to put pressure on her, and she's claiming that it's taken care of in the curriculum anyway. It's not by any means. It all depends on individual teachers. There are some fabulous teachers out there, but there are also schools where they pay no attention to wildlife whatsoever. So for them to give it the time that it deserves, it has to be on the national curriculum. Now, I'm talking about Wales. This should be UK-wide. You know, to me, natural history and learning about it, respecting it, is just as important as music, is just as important as PE, it's just as important as Welsh or English or mathematics. It's just as important as all of those. So I'm sad to say that it's not moved on very much at all.
Yeah, it's a shame. I mean, my day job is a wildlife education officer in North Norfolk, and I get a lot of schools through, and I talk to the school kids and I talk to the teachers, and I know that the teachers would welcome it. So, you know, what they need to do is consult the people that are going to deliver it, because I know full well that the teachers would welcome it.
Yes. The will is there lower down. It's just higher up. And I don't understand what their resistance to it is. Surely everyone benefits, you know. I mean, with people like you out there, if I was a teacher and it's quite a nice week, I know it's going to be a good week, I would think, well, do you know what? I know what we'll do on Thursday. We'll go out for the morning, or we'll go out for the afternoon. It helps them. You know, it means they don't have to think of how, you know, what are we going to do Thursday morning? And the children will learn, you know, and you think back to when you were in school, every classroom had frog spawn in a tank in the spring, and you'd watch them develop. It's how I learned long words like metamorphosis. It's still the longest word I know, you know, and I learned that when I was 5 years old in school. So I just do not understand the resistance to all of this at those top levels. And now you can start to see how frustrated I am with politicians and why I really don't have any time for them.
Okay. Well, keep chipping away.
Thank you. I will. And thanks for that as well.
Okay,
thanks,
thank you. Claire, you had your hand up, so do you want to ask a question?
Yes, thanks, Iolo. It was really interesting. Funnily enough, I've had a tank of frog spawn, which I've been watching ever since I got frogs laying in my minute little barrel pond. I'm still fascinated watching them change and grow. Anyway, what I wanted to ask was, have you been able to get out and about during lockdown? And is there anything in particular that you've spotted that's been unusual, that you've seen more of, or a favourite spot on your lockdown list?
Yes, I have managed to get out and about. I say I'm lucky where we live. We live right on the edge of a really small village in mid Wales. So I've got a network of country lanes all around me here. And that's what I've done. I mean, the farmer would allow me onto the field at the back, but I won't go on there. Just follow these lanes. And there's a brilliant show of spring flowers at the moment. Has been for a month now. The primroses, the lesser celandines, the cow parsley starting to come out now. And I tell you what, I've noticed a lot more of this year. And I don't know whether it's because I've got more time locally or whether there are more of them. A group of insects called bee flies. Particularly, the most common one here is one called the dark-edged bee fly. And for those of you who don't know what they are, just look them up. They're fascinating things. They look like bees. They're not bees, but they hover, and they have a long proboscis that they dip into flowers like primroses, ground ivy, and bugle. These flowers that a lot of other insects can't reach the nectar. And then they lay their eggs in the hole, in the sort of nest, if you like, of solitary bees. And they ping the eggs in. They don't land, they hover, and they fire these eggs in. And they're incredible things. I went for a walk earlier on and I saw 4 now, and it's not the best of days. The sun was just about out. It's the coolest day we've had for about 3 weeks. And there have been so many of them this year, and I've had so many people on social media saying, wow, that's what that is. I've been watching these. I didn't know what they were. And they're fabulous things. So yeah, if 2020 for me, it'll go down, yes, as the year of the lockdown, as the year of COVID-19, but it'll go down as the year of the bee flies as well.
Good. Thanks, Claire. Got time for one more question, and that's from David Hockney, my good friend here. Hello, David. How are you? Oh, hang on a sec. Let me just unmute you. Sorry.
Hello.
Right, start again.
Hello. Yeah, great. Thanks. Really
Hello,
enjoyed
David.
it. Hello, Iolo. Great to talk to you. Really enjoyed it. It's been great. Obviously, we're in lockdown at the moment, and we don't know how long it's going to go on for. Going back to what you were saying earlier about the buzzard and the persecution to birds of prey, do you feel the longer the lockdown goes on with less people out there, do you feel there's a risk that persecution this year could be higher for things like the hen harriers and merlins and stuff like that?
Yes, you've hit the nail on the head there. I strongly suspect, well, actually not suspect, we already know, we've seen a lot of incidents in North Yorkshire already, particularly buzzards, even kestrels being shot up there as well. And if those are being found, do you imagine what's not being found this year? You're not allowed to walk onto the estates, these grouse moors this year. They're allowed to burn. Is that essential? No, it's not, but they're allowed to do it, and they'll carry on anyway. And I suspect it's going to be a dreadful year for hen harriers in the north of England, parts of eastern Scotland this year, where we know persecution is rife. There's no question about that. They will deny, but you've only got to look at the records over the last 20 years, the numbers of golden eagles that have either been found or just disappeared, the number of hen harriers, the number of peregrines. Yeah, I think this will probably be one of the worst years for bird of prey persecutions for several decades. But of course, we won't know that, will we?
No.
We just won't know that. All we will see will be the end result of, there's usually a pair of peregrines nesting here. They're not there this year. It's usually a pair of hen harriers nesting in this valley. They're not there this year. It's because they've got free rein behind closed doors virtually to do exactly what they want. So I really fear for our birds of prey this year.
Yeah, that is the worry, big worry.
Okay.
Thanks for that. Yeah.
Thank you very much, David. I mean, you're right, Iolo. I mean, look at HS2, the high-speed railway. The government was pushed ahead to carry on the work whilst everyone's in lockdown. So it means that no one can be out there protesting, which is, I think, absolutely diabolical.
Oh, it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. And all to save 20 minutes on your rail journey. What's 20 minutes? Exactly. That's not going to kickstart the economy. 20 minutes are going to kickstart the economy. It's diabolical. It really is.
Totally. Okay, listen, we're near the end of this first of our In Conservation web series. We've got some more people coming up, and I'll tell you about them in a minute. Iolo, 2 more questions for you from me. Firstly, very briefly, what advice would you give to all these lovely people here in terms of getting through this dreadful situation we're in lockdown?
I would. It's difficult. It's difficult to keep positive all the time. Nearly everyone I know, you have days where you feel great, and then you have mornings where you think, oh, another 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever. Try and keep as positive as you can. Use wildlife. Doesn't matter where you are, there will be wildlife all around you. I was talking to a mate of mine in the middle of London, and he's unlucky. He's in a small tower block there, but he looked out the other morning, got up and had a cup of tea, and he had a peregrine go past at eye level. So the wildlife is out there. Use wildlife because it'll raise your spirits. And also, I would say, use social media. There are lots of like-minded people out there. You've got all kinds of live streaming now to peregrine nests, to osprey nests, to white-tailed eagle nests, all of these things. Tap into all of those as well and try and learn something new. I tell you what came through the post this morning was a new moth trap. Now, I used to trap moths once a week, every weekend when I was home. And then my old wooden moth trap fell apart about 10 years ago, and I haven't trapped moths since. So I'm going to start tonight to see what's in there tomorrow. I'm going to have to relearn a lot of these moths, but it's a new skill. So try and do that. If it's bumblebees, learn your bees, or learn your dragonflies or your butterflies and your moths. You know, just get all this information in there, because at the end of it, you'll go out, you will surprise yourself. You'll think, I know what that bird song is now. I know what that is. I know what that butterfly is. And it's a lovely feeling.
Absolutely. I used to watch a TV series called In the Actor's Studio, where this guy, who unfortunately died recently, but he used to interview people like Tom Hanks and all those big stars. And at the very end, he'll ask these really almost childish questions. Now, that was my favorite part. So I got my chance to do this. So Iolo, what is your favorite bird?
The hen harrier. I found my first nest when I was 11 years old, and I've been monitoring them ever since. So it's the hen harrier.
What is your favorite fish?
My favorite fish is the pike. It's just a massive mouth and a wall of muscle. So I like the pike.
What is your favorite invertebrate?
My favorite invertebrate is, oh, wow, that's a difficult one. What would I go for as a favorite invertebrate? Probably, I know I'm going to regret saying this, because there's something in the back of my mind saying it's this and this and this, but I'm going to go for a bee, and I'm going to go for the common carder bee, which is very common and an orangey coloured bee. And every time I see them, and I see lots of them, you know, it's like a dash of colour out there. I'm surrounded here by sheepwalk, green fields. So when you see a common carder bee flying around, it lifts your spirits.
Your favourite mammal?
Favorite mammal is an orca.
Favorite plant?
Favorite plant is a plant on the moors called a bog asphodel. Beautiful yellow flowers in early summer up on the moors. Beautiful.
And if you had to be in one location right now, where would it be?
It'd be in lockdown, in my living room in mid Wales, because I've got no choice.
Okay. Well, listen, I'd like to thank you, Iolo, for sparing your time today to actually come and speak to us. It's been absolutely amazing. I hope that everyone else has enjoyed it. Just to let you know that whilst I've got you here, we have some more in this series. We've got Dawn Barmer, who works with the BTO, British Trust for Ornithology. She's going to be talking about how to survey wildlife birds whilst under lockdown, and that's going to be on Monday at 4:30. And then on Tuesday, we've got Darren Woodhead, the amazing watercolour artist. He'll be talking about how to paint whilst in lockdown. And plus, if you do come to that session, one of you will be lucky enough to win a handmade card that he's made. And on Wednesday, we've got Chris Watson, who is, amongst other things, David Attenborough's sound man. And he'll be talking about adventures with Mr. Attenborough, as well as teaching you how to record sounds of nature using your phone under lockdown. So there's some stuff to look forward to for next week. And plus, we have some amazing late night ones next week as well. We got the really rare chance to speak to a guy called Ken Kaufman, who's actually here with us today. He's one of America's most famous birders, and one of the things that he did when he was a young man was to travel from coast to coast off his own bat. He wrote a book about all the birds that he saw, and he's one of the main sort of people educating young people, especially in birds. So we've got him, we've got a few other people coming up next week, so check the website out. But anyway, I must firstly and lastly again thank Iolo for coming along. Thank you so much for sparing your time. Really appreciate it. I hope that everyone has enjoyed today's session. Thank you, Iolo.
Thank you, and thanks to everybody who tuned in as well. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So see you on Monday, hopefully, and have a great weekend. Be safe. Remember to, look after yourselves and other people, and don't forget to look up. See you later, guys.
And look down.
See ya.